Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
He is Steve Gibson. I'm Ben Matlock.
And you're a year older on this day, because that's how it works. Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you. My birthday. And I can't imagine a better way to spend my time than to do the things I normally do on a Thursday.
I have to ask, because everybody always says this, and it annoys the shit out of me. It's like, oh, you feel older today? It's like, well, but age works incrementally. Like every day you're a day older.
Yeah, I usually feel older after work.
Right.
There's.
And it's like, and in that situation, yes, I feel 1,000 years old today.
I didn't like jump in an ice bath, and be like, wow, I feel 1,000,000 years younger. It's like, no, I feel older all the time, in weird ways, where it's like, I check my work schedule and then like immediately check it again because I opened up what I needed to see, but didn't actually look. And so you just have these like mental blanks all the time.
Yeah. And
I've been having those for 10 years. So
congrats. They get worse as you go.
Right. So it's, of course I feel older. Like everything's a bit more of a pain in the ass. It's called living.
I just love that people treat it like it's a switch. Like as soon as it's your birthday, that's when you feel older. Not any of the other days throughout the year. It's just like...
Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm 27 now, so I'm inching my way closer to 30. And like, that's the big number for a lot of people. Obviously, especially around my age, where it's like, oh man, you're old now. It's like, no.
Every decade you hit it and you go, oh shit, now I'm a 30-year-old. Now I'm a 40-year-old. And
yeah, I think, once you start hitting that point where you can accurately say how old you are and just say decades, like that's, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
It wigs you out a little bit. But yeah, if you haven't listened to the Non-Essential Podcast before, all this show is me and Steve get together every week with different stories. Both fucking dog has not barked all fucking day, and just like
your dog has a story. It's like, let me talk.
It's like fucking 2 minutes into the show, and she's been fucking quiet all day. I know it's a neighbor. I know it's a fucking neighbor doing something stupid.
Stupid, yeah, always.
God damn it, shut up. Anyway, the Non-Essential Podcast is a show where me and Steve get together every week and we tell each other stories. Some of them historical, some of them fictional. Just weird shit we find on the internet that's interesting to us. Last week, we talked about Japanese ghosts and demons and all the things they can teach us about ourselves. And we talked about, what was her first name?
Violet Jessup.
Violet Jessup. And how...
A woman that you do not want to go on a cruise with. We'll put it that way.
Well, you do want to go on a cruise with her, but you want to like push her out of the way and take her life raft because she's guaranteed to get one.
That's true. Maybe that's a good strategy. My strategy was stay off the damn boat because... You can say, well, she always survives. Like, yeah, the people around her didn't, though. Yeah. But yeah, if you just follow her till that critical moment and then push her out of the way and take her spot, that could work.
Yeah. So this week, since it is my birthday, I was a little fact about me. I was born on Friday the 13th.
Which should shock nobody, but...
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense if you really break it down. Like, I was looking into, are there any true, like, really interesting stories about Friday the 13th on, like, a historical level or anything? And usually when you try to look that stuff up, you get a lot of, oh, man, companies sure don't like their profits on Friday the 13th. Like, that's not an interesting fact. Like... Fuck companies. Like,
right.
I don't give a shit what they think about Friday the 13th. But occasionally you get weird things like, there's not much of a story to this one before I get into what I really want to talk about. But, like, Daz Baxter in 1976 was so afraid of Friday the 13th that he decided the safest place to be was to stay in bed. And then his apartment floor caved out and killed him. So, it, like, turns out there's really no way to... Like, if you believe in Friday the 13th and bad luck and shit, you're not going to, like... It's not like a vampire. You don't, like, have to invite it in for it to fuck with you.
Right. Like, I do like that was in a weird way, not like, aha, I'm glad that guy died that way, but it's like, but it shows that like the idea that if I stay in bed, I'm safe. That goes back to like the childhood thing where there's a monster in my closet, but if I hide under the covers, for some reason it can't get me now.
Yeah, this monster that can just like carve you to bits can't get through a comforter. It's your best shield.
I'm allergic to down. Damn it.
Is this Snuggie? Oh no. So you'd get shit like that, but I was able to find a pretty interesting story here. Sam Patch was born sometime in 1807. As a child, he worked as a spinner in a cotton mill above Pawtucket Falls. Seeing this rapid torrent of water, Sam was, quote, coaxed to go into the leaping business, according to the Democrat and Chronicle paper.
I didn't know that was a business, but...
Hey, well, you're gonna learn you a thing or two today, aren't you? This is not a business. Sam Patch, to date, is the only person I know who got into the leaping business. So Sam and his fellow workers began jumping from a bridge into the Blackstone River just for their kind of amusement and entertainment. Of the group, Sam was especially recognized for his elegance and was always trying to push himself by finding higher platforms to jump from. Another quote from the paper said he developed as a leaper in a wonderful way, few of the boys caring to duplicate his feats. I fucking bet, because he's just
right.
He's just jumping.
It's like the friend that jumps onto the train tracks and lays flat and the train goes over him. They're like, duplicate that. It's like, no.
Yeah, like a lot of these paper quotes, like there's a good chunk of them for Sam Patch, and it's always like he had no equal. It's like no one tried to. Like no one wanted to compete with this fucking fool. So as an adult, Patch moved to work in a cotton mill in Paterson, New Jersey, where he took his leaping to the next level. In September 1827, a new bridge was being installed on a ledge over the Passaic Falls, and it was about a height of 80 feet. So to give you kind of an idea of what 80 feet is, it's a little over a third of the height of the Golden Gate Bridge. So it's not like lethal dropping distance or anything like super, super crazy, but it's like fucking terrifying.
Well, I mean, technically 20 feet can be lethal. Like...
Right, but if like you like really, I mean, just in terms of like, it doesn't really matter how you dive from the Golden Gate Bridge. You're going to be fucking yourself up.
Right.
Here you can like control your body in a way that you would hit the water and mostly be okay. And apparently Patch was just a fucking wizard at it. So as
a whiz-bang.
A whiz-bang. As a large crowd watched the pre-constructed bridge start to get placed over the ledge of the falls, Sam Patch suddenly appeared wearing just a shirt and underwear, which is a great image.
Right. And it makes sense. I mean, you're not going to jump in your, like, dungarees or whatever the fuck they called it then.
Well, somebody probably showed him up and jumped in naked right after him. So he just appeared and hurled himself from the ledge. He hit the river feet first with a great splash and came out of the water a local celebrity. He would actually jump from the Passaic Falls a few more times over the next couple years. He always had an audience, but eventually grew tired of it and decided to tackle the championship waterfall if you're a professional leaper. Again,
well, yeah.
This should not be a job, but for him, it is a job. So he went after Niagara Falls. On October 7th, 1829, he leapt from a platform on Goat Island, which is kind of a divider island between Canada and America. He was clad in white, and with, quote, great deliberation, he put his hands tight to his side and jumped into the vast gulf of foaming waters. So the platform wasn't at like the top of the falls. Niagara Falls is somewhere between 167 to 188 feet, depending on where you are and how high and where you're measuring it from. But Patch did do a second jump from a higher platform that was about 125 feet. The Buffalo Republican claimed the jump of Patch is the greatest feat of the kind ever effected by man. He may now challenge the universe for a competitor. Because he was the only fucker doing it. Like, nobody There was nobody like goddamn, he did 125 feet. I got to do 130.
Yeah.
Like, nobody wanted in on Patch's meal ticket, so he was mostly competing with himself. It's like being a golfer, except you're probably going to die at the end.
That's the problem, is it's not like I'm going to run faster and faster until I can't beat my score anymore. It's like, well, when you get to the point where you can't do it anymore, you're dead.
Right. So Patch, after the Niagara jump, he turned his attention to the Genesee River, which would be around a 97-foot plunge. But, since he was running on donations from spectators, he had to up the ante since it's a shorter fall. So his advertisement stated that his newly acquired pet bear would also be making the leap.
Of course.
He wasn't lying. He showed up with a fucking bear. He apparently took the bear by the collar and pushed it over the falls into the turbulent water below. Once the bear was confirmed to be okay, Patch leapt in. Everything with the stunt went okay, but this is really where I'm like, fuck Patch. Like, the bear didn't ask for that shit.
Exactly. I was kind of hoping you'd say he landed in the bear's mouth and the bear survived and was well fed.
Right. Well, since this is a Friday the 13th story, it ends badly, but I really wanted it to end with the bear fucking him up.
Right.
Because, imagine you're a bear. You just want to, do your fucking bear shit in the woods, and some asshole has you by the collar and fucking chucks you into a goddamn waterfall. Sam Patch is an asshole.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So Sam was... This stunt is probably one of his most notable ones, but he was a little disappointed with the donation tally. He decided to stage one more jump from the same spot to earn more money, but constructed a platform over the rock ledge to bring the total jump height up to around 125 feet. This time, his ad sold this as Patch's last jump. He meant it to mean the last jump of the season. It turned out to be far more true.
Didn't see that coming.
So, on Friday the 13th, November of that year, Patch scaled the platform in front of thousands of spectators and gave a short, rambling speech, which he had kind of become known to do, where he put himself above famous historical figures. One quote was, "Napoleon was a great man and a great general. He conquered armies and he conquered nations, but he couldn't jump the Genesee Falls because Napoleon wouldn't fucking do that, man."
Right.
That's
like,
just
that wasn't
you.
and that's not part of a conquer the world plan. Okay, first we take Germany, then we take Spain, and then we jump over the Genesee Falls,
and then splash time.
Oh.
Yeah, sure, you might have a nice house and a good life, but I'll kick your ass in Russian roulette. Yeah, awesome, dude. You're the only one playing.
Right.
So, obviously, after a speech like this, witnesses later argued over whether Patch was drunk at the time of this leap, or had only had one quick shot of brandy to take the edge off. I think that it kind of settles the debate. He was probably drunk as fuck.
Right.
Either way, something went wrong with Patch's leap. The first third of the fall was as graceful as ever, but then Patch's arms extended, his legs separated, and he struck the water and sunk forever. The stunned crowd waited to see if Patch would pop back up, or at least his body, but there was no sign of him. They wouldn't find his remains for 4 months, where his body was discovered 7 miles downstream.
It's amazing to me always that there's anything left after that time underwater.
Yeah, it's fucking, you gotta imagine, it's fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
What is great is that the reaction to Patch's final jump was, quote, mixed. Some lauded his dream big and take risk approach, while others saw it as a tragic, foolish waste of life.
I think I fall in the... Well, it was tragic until the bear thing, so tragic might be a stretch for me, but...
It's definitely a waste.
Yeah, because the whole, dream big thing is but that's if you're trying to accomplish something, worthwhile.
Well, it's kind of, it's interesting you say that, because, he did kind of usher in, that whole daredevil philosophy of entertainment. Patch actually, after he died, he became kind of an American legend for the next couple of decades, where he was, getting poems and ballads and tall tales written about him. And like Andrew Jackson kind of latched onto him during like some nationalist propaganda bullshit where like he named a horse after him and stuff. So it was like this weird thing where the country was holding up this, daredevil pretty high for, doing what came naturally to him at the cost of any logic or concern for safety. So a very, very American life Sam Patch led, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for better or worse, except for that bear who should have fucking mauled him.
Right.
It didn't really go into specifics about the bear. I'm not sure if it was like a, kind of bear cub, which I have to imagine. It had to be something he could force. Like, because I imagine a full...
yeah, because I can't imagine trying to, like, push a full-sized grizzly bear.
A full-grown grizzly
falls, so, like...
would just, like, eat you and then throw what's left of you into the waterfall if you tried to shove it. It was kind of weird. Like, he put a lot of effort into his stunts, but he didn't really put much effort into, like, any sort of safety precautions. So it's easy to be like, well, what a fucking dipshit. But it's like, that daredevil thing is, like, alive and well today. Like,
yeah, and I mean, to me, from what you described of his final jump, it sounds like, I mean, it could have been something as simple as he blacked out halfway down. Like,
maybe, yeah, that's true. Like, you hear about, like, people, like, hitting, certain velocities and just passing out. And
sure.
So
yeah,
it's
especially
like,
if you're jumping from that height. And
yeah.
Who knows?
I didn't even think about that. But that definitely could have happened. Or he could have just been fucking sloppy drunk and thought he did it so many times he would be fine.
He's trying to wave to the crowd and didn't work out.
So yeah, and it's it's easy for me to like kind of bash the guy because I don't like that he used a bear. But I was like everybody else. I was a big Jackass fan, and I watch a bunch of funny shit like that on YouTube every day.
Yeah, and I guess for me, if you're going to do that stuff, as long as you're doing it in a way that you're risking your own life for the sake of it and not, like, other people's.
Yeah. I think it gets a pass for being the first, but if, like, the Jackass guys were just, like, jumping from really high places, it would fit their motif, but you wouldn't be like, oh, that's hilarious. Like, what makes it funny is that, like, people got more creative with how they would hurt themselves.
Right. Well, yeah, and their stunts, it was the opposite. It sounds like, this guy was more the Evel Knievel type, where you go and you're honestly cheering for him to succeed, whereas Jackass, you're just waiting to see how they're going to get hurt. So
like, they're not going to succeed. He's fucking Johnny Knoxville's boxing Butterbean. What did you think would happen? So, yeah, that's my story this week.
And you're sticking to it.
And well, I'm not. I can't stick to this. I barely did research. I have one article, like as usual. But yeah, I really wish the bear got him. It would have been a way better. Like if he was like, imagine him walking out onto the platform, and he's bringing the bear with him, and he's trying. You see him trying to push the bear, and the bear starts wrestling with him.
Yeah, the bear just turns around and, like, mauls him.
Yeah, you just see them fighting, and then they both fall, and it's this really dramatic, like, they're punching each other and shit. And then the bear
they
comes
both
out.
disappear under the water, and about a minute later, the bear just, like, head first and then shoulders, and it just walks out
that would be such a better story. Like, they don't find either body until those 4 months, and then they only find Patches. But the bear somehow got away.
And there's just a note scratched into what's remaining of him that says F you.
Man, that's a movie. We just wrote a movie ending.
It seems so weird to me to add that, to be like, I need more things. What would people want to see? Me jump higher, or me to just hurl a random animal off of a waterfall? That's the ticket.
That is really like bare bones ideas. Like, what if I throw someone else off the high platform?
I'd like to think he was sitting at home trying to, like, think of something, and the bear kept, like, shitting in the house. And after the final, he's like, oh, yeah, fuck you. I'm throwing you off this waterfall.
Yeah.
So, my stuff this week, I kind of went your direction with it, where I decided to look into some, like, just mythological creatures. Not, like, more folklore than, like, urban legend. And these are all, like, it gets into that cryptozoology, so closer to your like Melonheads thing from a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
So I guess I've got 4 of them here, and I'll start with, I'm going to pronounce all of these wrong, but I'll start with the Neon. I think it's Nian. Neon is a creature of Chinese folklore, and it's said to come down from the villages one night a year. It's immortal, so I don't know why I wrote this. It said it's immortal and cannot be killed, and they kind of mean the same thing.
It's immortal and doesn't like
and
death.
Also lives forever. But it can't be injured. It's larger than, and this is a direct quote, so this one's stupid too, but it wasn't on me being dumb. It says it's larger than an elephant or any creature that walks this earth. But as far as I can think, the elephant's the biggest creature that walks the earth. So
yeah, I don't think
it seems weird to go on to specify it's bigger than the biggest thing and also anything big. It's like, well, yeah. Whatever. So it's a larger than elephant-sized creature. It has a flat lion-like face, a pair of large sharp horns, and of course razor-sharp teeth. On the night that the Neon visits the village, all the people could do was hide in their homes.
Hang on. Like, I always get confused when like people describe like giant things with razor sharp teeth. Like, if it's that big, then it can't be razor sharp. Like, a razor is sharp because it's so thin.
Well, I mean, you could have a 8-inch razor blade, though.
I guess. I'm skeptical.
I think it's just the cliche when you talk about teeth, you have to describe them as razor sharp. I was like, well, yeah, the whole point is this animal's a carnivore, so of course they're sharp. The teeth are meant for, right. You don't want to get bit by it. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So on the night of the visit, all the people could do was hide because you can't hurt it, you can't kill it. Sometimes the creature would be content to just break into the food stores and eat all their grain and stuff that they've saved up. But sometimes it would spot a person and it would decide to feast on them instead.
So it was just a fucking asshole.
It's just a hungry guy.
Like,
yeah, but
like
just once
Neon is Chinese for fucking prick who won't leave your goddamn town alone.
Well, especially when it said when it does find a human victim to feast on, what it does is it gores them with the horns first and then uses its jaws and sharp teeth to eat them piece by piece. So it doesn't like even do you the courtesy of just like dinosaur chomping you or, shark chomp in half. It's just like, I'm going to gore you and then like cut up little tasty pieces.
It'll pick away at you.
And it said that the Neon would eat anybody, but it really enjoyed eating children the best because, they're the most tender, right? It's like veal.
That's the thing. Like, always with like the monsters is like, oh, kids are the most delicious. Mm-hmm. Like, you fucking how?
Yum, yum, yum. That tells you whoever's writing the lores are sitting there thinking about like, what would be the most tasty human? A child.
That's a good point. Like, who's the fucking freak who's like, I can't get over it. I really think a kid would be better than a full-grown man. If I had to pick, I'm just saying, if I was at a restaurant.
The worst part, they say it, and then the rest of us are like, makes sense. But anyway, for years, the villagers would have to endure the visits by the Neon until one year, an elderly man confronted the beast and was able to drive it off. Afterwards, the man revealed himself to be a god and told the people that the beast could never be defeated, but there was a number of things they could do to keep it away.
Buy my insurance plan.
Right. Give me all your money, and every year you'll be safe from this creature that totally exists.
Old guy insurance.
According to this guy, or god, apparently the Neon hates the color red, so, like just put up a lot of red stuff. Which is weird because it also eats humans, which are full of red blood, but that might be overthinking it.
Well, he doesn't look at it. That's why he picks at it. He's like, this is gross.
Gross, but tasty.
But I need it.
It's going to go straight to my hips. Second, it hates loud noises, for instance, the sound of booming fireworks. And lastly, it hates weird creatures, so children should wear weird masks and carry lanterns with them. It said if the people followed these guidelines, the creature would leave them alone every year. So apparently this whole lore is tied closely to the tradition of the Chinese Spring Festival, like the Harvest Festival. And if you look up the pictures that I saw of the Neon, well, there's a whole bunch. A lot of these creatures have 1,000 different interpretations. But the most common one is basically, it looks like those dancing dragons that, from Japanese, like, festival. A very similar type thing. So it's very much tied to the festival in the ways that, they'll shoot fireworks and they'll do all this stuff. The kids dress up. And
it was the only way we could get people to maintain these fucking dumbass traditions is like the promise that you can keep a dragon away.
But I think my favorite part of the myth is the fact that this like terrifying immortal creature that eats people is afraid of weird creatures. So all you do is put on a funky looking mask and it's like, oh my God, what is that? I'm out of here. So that's the neon.
Frightening. Terrifying stuff, guys. I hope you aren't listening to this with the lights off.
This one, I moved the order around a little bit because this one's regionally closer. But the next one is called the Bulgasari or Pulgasari. It can be with a B or a P. And it gave other, like how the name evolved over time, but I didn't really care to write that down because I can't pronounce it anyway. But this legend originates from Korea, and it says that a tyrannical and bloodthirsty governor began arresting all the Buddhist monks. And so one monk went into hiding in his sister's closet because, they'll never look there. But after some time, he became bored and lonely. Apparently, like, just living every day, all day in a closet's kind of crappy. So he sculpted a creature out of rice, and to his surprise, the creature came to life.
God damn it, not again.
Rice creatures. He could see that the creature was hungry, so he began feeding him metal needles. Like, I best I could tell it was like sewing needles, which that seems fucking weird to me, too. You're like, oh, this cute little rice creature's hungry. How about some needles? But it ate him, and every time it would eat, it would grow bigger.
No.
Eventually,
shit.
yeah, that's a problem because eventually it grew to the size where it was towering over the houses.
Like, I would be a really bad scientist because, like, you would like have a creature like this in life. I'm just imagining like Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy, and you got a little baby Groot, and he's like getting bigger when he eats shit, and I would just start hitting him with a pan. Like, just no,
get back, just small again.
He's out of control.
Small.
I know how these movies end.
That's how this ends. He gets really big, and he's eating all the... Apparently he likes metal, so he's just eating all the metal in town. And that's causing lots of problems. The governor sent the army to destroy it, but of course nothing could kill the creature. This
is just the Iron Giant.
It's pretty much... eventually, like I said, it grew to Tower of the Houses. It was described as like a giant, crudely shapen bear is what it looked like. They're like a stretched out or elongated bear.
The only way we could stop it was to get Sam Patch on the case. And
push him down a waterfall. But it was a bear with floppy ears and a nose like an elephant and the eyes of a rhino. So apparently this monk that was stuck in the closet's like really bad at sculpting.
What does a rhino look like? Or eyes look like?
I don't know that they look different than an elephant. It was weird to me that they specify...
Like, if you showed me the eye of an elephant and like an eye of a cow, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you the difference.
Right. But its skin was completely covered in needles, which I guess are supposed to be the needles that it had eaten. Eventually, like I said, the governor sent the army after it, but they couldn't hurt it. So eventually the governor decided to order that they burn it. But much to their dismay, all that accomplished was turning it into a rampaging flaming monster.
Oh,
so, yeah, now it was on fire.
This plan didn't work at all.
I loved that part because it's kind of thing you've seen in cartoons before, and it never gets old to me. Like the whole, haha, oh crap.
Everything's weak to fire, do it. And then turns out we're the ones weak to fire.
Kind of disappointingly, though, it says it continued its rampage until the entire town was destroyed, and much to the evil governor's chagrin, I guess. Like,
I bet that's a weak word though for like a town just got destroyed under your watch. Like, oh, you fiddlesome monster.
That's where I'm going. I mean, that's all the ending was. Is the whole town was destroyed. So, well, what happened to the monster? Where'd it go? Like,
oh, it's still somewhere out there.
Apparently. Now this is a folk, like I said, a lot of these are folklore. They're never really like meant to be true, obviously. But the tale, most folklore has like...
That's not true. This is a survival podcast.
The moral to this story was supposed to be like teaching against the dangers of an evil totalitarian. God, I can't say words.
I'm glad we have a show, an audio format for you to
right.
stumble over.
The evil bad guy. It's warning against bad evil people that are bad and evil. So, but it's a weird moral to me because it says the whole town got destroyed, which would suck for the governor, but I think it would suck more for the people of the town. Like, because the governor's a governor. He's probably like, damn it, build me another palace. But
totalitarianism only happens if the people let it happen. That's the point. And if you let it happen, those incompetent fucks won't help you when the fucking monster gets lit on fire.
Where this gets really interesting is that in the early 80s, Kim Jong-il, who at that point was the son of the Kim Jong whatever, who was the leader at that point, so he wasn't in control of the country then, but he had a production company make a terrible like Godzilla knockoff based on the myth because he was like obsessed with Godzilla and monster movies. But of course, being Korea and him being Kim Jong-il, it was part like Godzilla movie, but it was part of a propaganda campaign. He had this director and his actress wife kidnapped back in like 76 or 78 and was forcing them to make like propaganda movies, because North Korea, I guess, at that point. But what's hilarious is that the movie was terrible and it was just like a cheap ass Godzilla knockoff. But it's also like the thing that so many of these like shitty rulers do is it ironically misses the entire point of the original story, which was against people like Kim Jong-il. Like, it was speaking out against those exact type of leaders. He's like, yeah, let's use this to talk about how great North Korea is. It's like, no, that's not the point.
Well, like dictators like that really just needed to get into wrestling where there is no message. Like that would blow their fucking minds.
And it's funny because I swear that they don't see it, but everybody else around them does. But you have to, if you're unfortunate to be under the rule of someone like that, you have to just clap along and be like, yeah, good movie, great leader.
Yeah, yay.
But another fun fact is that the director and the actress that was his wife that he had kidnapped, this was the last film that they made before like successfully escaping North Korea and coming to the United States.
Hell yeah, dude.
So, yeah, good for them.
Way to be. All you had to do was make a piece of shit to distract him.
Right. I just picture that guy sitting there watching this crap movie going, hee,
yes.
Clap, clap.
And the guy who made it's just like, I fucking hate you so much. You fucking ruined my life.
We can make a sequel, but I need to film in San Francisco, but I swear I'll come back. Just kidding. Okay, so that's the Bulgasari or Pulgasari, whichever way you want to say it. The next one is, and this name is great, it looks like Groot slang, but there's another way it's written. Maybe it's supposed to be pronounced Groat slang.
I like Groot slang because it goes back to what I was saying about Groot.
Right.
And I appreciate that.
So the Groot slang legend originates in Africa. The creature is said to be a giant primordial serpent, which caught my attention because all the Dark Souls stuff is like, yep, that's where life always originates, or with giant...
I'm pretty sure I learned the word primordial from Dark Souls.
Right. And it was one of the first creatures that the gods had created. The serpent is said to be larger than an elephant, because that's the only thing we're allowed to use for size comparison, and smarter than man. So given its size...
as an elephant, and as smart as an elephant, and as fast as an elephant. It might have been an elephant. We don't know.
Right. But given its size, it had massive strength, and given its intelligence, it was very dangerous. So the gods soon realized that they had fucked up by giving so much of everything.
Whoops.
Whoops. So they decided to split them into two animals, the snake and the elephant, which is weird to me because the elephant I get because they said, "Oh, big, strong animal, and also smart." Like, why is the snake smart? Like, I've never thought snakes were particularly intelligent creatures. They just
anyone who can, or anything that can figure out how to move that fucking quick without legs. There's some natural intellect there.
Good point. And of course, the whole biblical, it tricked Adam and Eve. That.
Well, the snake didn't. That was the devil. Like, not every snake. Snakes get a bad rap from, like, the devil doing his like trickery shit, which really wasn't even that bad. He was just like, "Hey, you want an apple?" And like fucking dipshits are like, "Yeah, apples."
What made it bad is that's what made everybody love Golden Delicious apples, and I hate that Golden Delicious term.
I don't know when the last time I had a Golden Delicious was.
Yeah. To me, they're not golden or delicious. They're kind of red and yellow, and they're okay. They're not gross, but they're not, A
Golden Delicious, if it's ripe, is pretty gold.
Yeah. I like Honeycrisp better.
Oh fuck. I'm sorry, I have to work with Honeycrisp apples every day. Fuck those apples. The most sensitive fucking bullshit baby apples in the world. Like, you fucking blow on them, they'll get a bruise.
Yeah. We must grow them stronger here in Ohio.
We don't grow shit in Washington strong.
Anyway, so the gods have gone through and they found all these Groot slangs and they split them up into two animals, but one managed to escape and hide. And from it spawned the entire species of Grootslangans, I don't know. Just the entire species of these giant serpent things.
Okay.
And then what's funny is then it goes on, just like skips all that. It's like, yeah, one survived and then others came from it. It's like, right. And it just starts talking as in fact. And so the best known location currently for a Groot slang is the Richtersveld cave in South Africa, where it is said to lure in elephants, of course, that it then swallows whole. I did find one anecdote that said in 1917, English businessman Peter Grayson went missing after his camp was attacked by a pack of lions that had injured and wounded his fellow travelers. But he, after the attack, they survived, but he was missing. So, of course, like, the assumption was that Peter disappeared because he was eaten by a Groot slang. It's like, you fucking saw the lions that attacked you.
Well, no, I mean, there's only one possible explanation in the fucking, jungle and safari and all that shit. It's like, the only thing that can attack you is God's mistake.
It's like, well, at the time he went missing, a bunch of us got attacked by this known dangerous animal that eats and carries off people. It must have been a mythical serpent. Like, I love that.
Yeah. I do love what you were saying about, like, the gods, though, being like, oh shit, we made them too good. And it made me think of, like, if gods were designing humans, and, like, they had to be thinking, well, if they get out of hand, tigers will fuck them up. And it didn't pan out. Like, they built fences too big for the tigers.
Guns, damn it!
That's cheating. That. We need to give them some diseases that spread by doing their most fun activity. It's the only way to stop them.
Water polo.
Yeah, extreme water polo.
So that brings me to my last one, and you've probably heard of this, maybe not. It's called the Wendigo, or Wendigo.
I have heard the name. I feel like it's one of those things I've heard a lot of different descriptions of, though.
Yeah, I think they had them in the Witcher series, but
yeah, that's probably where I heard it from.
And as a side note, I had to edit out a lot of apparentlys from this section, and you'll see why as I go. But the Wendigo legend comes from the Algonquin folklore, which were various Native American tribes from the Great Lakes region, largely in present-day Canada, but also the south side of the lakes in Michigan and here in Ohio and some other areas. The Wendigo is either a creature or a spirit that can possess a human, and once it does, it turns them into this just monster, basically, with a singular desire to feast on human flesh. However, the more human flesh it eats, the hungrier and larger it becomes. It's said that a well-fed Wendigo can tower over the trees.
Turns out we've been Wendigos all along, folks.
That's why, like, if you bite your cheek, you got to be careful, because that happens sometimes. But if you're possessed, you bite your cheek and go, that's pretty good. I need more.
Yeah, that's always my reaction when I bite the inside of my mouth. Like,
it's not like, fuck, how am I this stupid? It's
not too shabby.
The creature is humanoid in appearance, though pale, and with protruding ribs and bones as if it was starving, down to next to nothing. Although once it possesses a human body, then they obviously just look like a person who wants to eat other people. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
If only we had a word to describe something like that in 2018.
18. Jim.
Jim. Yeah. You look like Jim.
There's a well-known tale of the Wendigo possession that stems back to a group of Jesuit missionaries who were sent to work with a tribe near the Ottawa River, which I guess is up by present-day Alberta. After the first group fell mysteriously ill, a second group was sent to check in on them and assist them. But when the second group arrived, they found their fellow Jesuits who had survived were afflicted with a mysterious ailment, though one that was not uncommon to the locals, which had driven them to pounce on and eat women, children, and then I quote, and even men, which I found hilarious because it's written multiple places like, oh, I get that they'd want to eat women and children, but even men?
No, not the men.
Right. That's a weird distinction to make to me. Like, you just think pounce on and eat people.
We're so important. Who's going to lift weights and talk about beer?
Right. Grow beards.
Grow beards.
But I guess the locals calmly explained that this was just the work of a Wendigo and that it happens all the time. So, like,
no biggie. It's just one of those fucking cannibal ghouls.
But this is where my first apparently that survived comes in. Apparently, this whole tale is an actual thing that really happened, though most attribute it to a case of a severe starvation during the winter months, which drove the Jesuits to cannibalism rather than, a supernatural creature. But
it sounds a little far-fetched to me that someone's going to just suddenly eat people without a fucking spirit absorbing it.
We haven't covered any other stories that are similar to that already on this show. But there is a modern, if controversial, medical term called Wendigo psychosis, which is named after the legend and describes observed mental illness that drives people to crave human flesh, even as they fear becoming a cannibal.
Yeah, there's an Always Sunny episode about
it. I wouldn't doubt it. But, for example, meet Swift Runner, who was a trapper in the Plains Cree tribe. During the winter of 1878, his family was struggling to survive. His eldest son eventually succumbed to starvation and died. So at this point, you can see there was only one thing that Swift Runner could think to do. I'm sure you see where this is going.
No, I can't follow it.
No, it's worse.
What?
So his son died of starvation, so he decided to butcher and eat the rest of his family. The ones that were, like, still alive.
He's like, that looks fucking awful. I gotta do something.
Do something, right. It's like, how about we eat the dead one? No, it's spoiled.
Nope.
Get over here, wife and
it's
daughter.
It's spoiled.
But what marks this as Wendigo psychosis rather than just, like, a horrible, bad, somehow more understandable tale of, like, just survival instinct was the fact that they were only 25 miles away from emergency supplies at Hudson Bay's company's post, and he knew it. Like, they knew that food wasn't that far away.
We'll never make it. You all have to go inside me.
Eventually, spring came, and Swift Runner, like, confessed to the deeds and was executed. So, there's that.
That doesn't sound right. It was survival.
But there's actually, like, a lot more documented examples of Wendigo psychosis. You can find them on the Wikipedia article I link, or, the internet's the internet. If you just type in Wendigo psychosis, you'll find a lot. But they're, like, actual documented real cases. And it's not, of course, again, saying that these creatures exist and possess people. It's just a term for a mental illness, I guess. Like, I don't know, like a weird...
A lot of mental issues and stuff, like, their names tend to come from, like, some sort of, like, lore or myth or whatever, because it's just a familiarity thing, I think.
Right, and that's what it sounds like when you say Wendigo psychosis. It's not like that's a thing that you can catch or get. It's just a term that they use to group these people in that, like, end up doing these things, which may be caused by a variety of other outside issues.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting because I like you. I'd like when I saw that creature. That's the only one out of these four that I had kind of heard of before, but didn't really know what it was. Other than, like, when I'd hear it, I'd picture, like, a ghoulish, sharp-toothed creature.
Yeah.
I think they had him on Supernatural as well. We used to watch that for the first like 37 seasons, and then it kept going somehow.
And it's like, I know the story now. Stop, please.
It really caught my attention when like you read about the Jesuit thing, and you're like, oh, that sounds like one of those like terrible horror movie like setups, and then you get to the end and you just find out, and they're like, oh, by the way, this actually happened, and you're like, oh. Well, huh? Can you imagine being like, they're like, oh man, this group that we sent is in trouble. Can you go check on them? And you get there and you come back, they're like, did you check on them? You're like, yeah.
For as often as I talk during like movies that I'm hating and stuff and just trashing them, I would be really fucked up if like I just mocked a movie relentlessly and then I was like, all this actually happened. It's like I there's no way that I made too much fun of it.
Right. I clapped when that person died. Crap.
Yeah, I was like, good. Fuck him, idiot. It turns out it was like a horrible thing.
Who wears blue shorts with a green shirt? He deserved it.
That's why Jason got you.
So, that's what I got this week. Just a handful of interesting creatures that I stumbled across.
And now we know how to defend ourselves when some Wendigo fuck is trying to get inside your body.
And if you do get possessed, don't eat people, because then you'll just want to eat more and more. The moral of the story is obesity is a real problem.
It affects 1 out of every 3. We're full of life lessons here.
Yes.
The things you find on the internet and that you can apply to your day-to-day life, like don't fucking make a goddamn rice monster and then light it on fire.
That out of all of it, that might have been my favorite like single sentence there is when they're like, he decided to order them to burn it, but it just caught a flame and kept rampaging.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, I like the idea though that he probably had like a step of lists of like solutions, and I think every business has a list like this where it always ends with fire. And if that didn't work, then hope is lost.
It reminds me of an episode of Bob's Burgers that I love, where they bring in an old, it's like a take on Jaws, but it's not Jaws, but an old animatronic shark, and of course the thing like tips over and is out of control, and it's just like rampaging downtown. It's not like sentient or anything, but it's just causing damage because it's this giant robot that's out of control. And so Bob, as the captain of the Block Watch, decides to step up, and he comes up with 3 I guess the neighborhood come up with 3 plans to stop it. And he's like, well, first, let's just spill some oil on the street. That'll get rid of the friction, and it won't be able to move anywhere. And of course, it gets in the oil and just starts sliding faster. And they're like, well, shit, we made it faster. And then they're like, well, let's, they put spike strips down or something. And then, of course, the spike strips just get stuck to it and are flailing around. He's like, great, we gave it a weapon. And it's just all this thing. Everything that they try, it just makes it more dangerous. And that's what came to mind when I read that, like setting it on fire. But now it's just a flaming, rampaging rice monster.
Yeah. We're good at making bad things and then making them worse. I think that's the lesson there.
It is. And that's why I think those stories hit home, is because it's the true human experience.
Yeah. Oh my God, are you saying we're the monsters?
Dun, dun, dun.
So that's the Non-Essential Podcast this week. Thanks for joining us. A little shorter this week, but but
that's your birthday present. We're not gonna torture you for as long here.
Awesome. I get to cook now.
10 extra minutes of free time.
So check back next week, same time, all that shit. We'll have more stuff.
Yep, we'll be back. Bye-bye.